Благодаря. Добро утро. Good morning. As I'm not the president, but a simple district mayor, and it's not very likely that the TV networks choose to show footage of my intervention tonight. If you don't mind, I'll continue in English for the sake of convenience. Well, I'm very tempted to say that if there is one thing we can start from in countering state capture risks, this is changing our constitution. But I think this is something mainly Bulgarians will understand. So I'll continue in a wider context. And also as a follow-up of what Rosen said, if there is one general rule that seems to be valid, is that we are successful, the West or EU in particular, vis-a-vis third parties such as Russia, but not only, when we speak in one voice, and we usually fail when we try to defend our own interests separately. And if for larger countries such as Germany or the UK or France or Italy, the odds of outplaying Mr. Putin at his game, maybe even for smaller countries like even Austria, Netherlands, and especially countries with weak states such as Bulgaria, this is a sure fail. I was a Minister of Energy during the second phase of Mike's classification, which I think was the most dangerous, maybe only with the exception of the current one we are going through. But that one was very dangerous because at that time Mr. Putin was still on the surface and maybe in essence friends with the presidents and the prime ministers of the big countries of Europe. He hadn't invaded Ukraine yet and hadn't given an open reason to the West for applying sanctions. But here in Bulgaria we are feeling very, very strongly the fruits of this total dependence on energy, on Russia. And I used the meetings of the European EU Ministers of Energy to raise this issue. And every time I was met with silence, as if I had said nothing, with the exception of usually the ministers of Poland and Estonia. And that was it. And our history shows that when we pursue our goals in energy independently, Russia or others, they're always successful in outplaying us. South Stream was a case in point. In the early stage of the project, when it was still not clear that Russia is trying to circumvent European energy law, and it was not existing when the project started, Russia used as a very strong lever the competition among southeastern European states which wanted to attract the project for the sake of transit fees. And this worked in Russia's benefit. Then the project itself, it's a unique project. Its structure was not one project. Gazprom made independent treaties with each and separate country where the pipeline was planned to pass through. One project with Bulgaria, one with Serbia, one with Hungary, one with Austria. And whereas Austria probably managed to defend its economic interests better and being well diversified and having a stronger and stronger state, the other countries along the route played completely along the lines of Gazprom and the Kremlin. Something similar happened with Nabucco, which was a project of great economic and strategic importance to Europe. And I remember the Commissioner of Energy at that time saying, because there was the case, ultimately Nabucco failed because the partners, the Shah Deniz energy partners, deemed it was less economically favorable than alternative options. And what would have made the difference would have been a more significant contribution by the EU in achieving this project. So the energy commissioner said, I couldn't, he said, Traicho, I met with the president of Azerbaijan the other day, and he asked me how come we can spend hundreds of billions to save Greece, which is only 2% of the economy of the Eurozone. And the European Union says this is not a big deal and a big risk. But we couldn't spend a fraction of this for developing the South gas corridor, which everyone says is of ultimate strategic importance. So when the third stage came, somehow it seemed for a period that finally Europe can get its act together and put some measures forward. And one promising idea was the energy union. I don't know if anyone already remembers about the energy union, which disappeared like thin air. But what has worked and is working is where the EU continues to implement its legislation in energy and apply it in relations with Russia. There it works, because there it's more difficult to make separate deals. One case in point is the antitrust case of the Commission against Gazprom, which was closed 2 years ago, and where if all the states that were involved, all the Central and Eastern European states acted tougher on the conclusions of this case, we could have achieved even better results. But even in this, let's say, watered out version that finally the Commission presented, it made a difference on the way Gazprom and Kremlin works in the energy fields in this area. So these are my two basic conclusions and my message and wish for the future. When we act together, we're usually successful. In the other case, not.